The Bluest Blues. This is a blues for the brothers killed in prison and for the families who didn't get to say goodbye. This is a blues for all the good women and men behind bars for the crime of being poor, black, Mexican, or Indian, or for refusing to kneel. This is a blues for the work undone, the art unmade, the poems unwritten, the stars undiscovered, the songs unsung. This is a blues for those who will die of old age without seeing the street again. This is a blues for those who have been shot off the wall, cut by razor wire, or run to ground by dogs, and for those who got away for a while. This is a blues for those who surrendered and for those who shot it out. This is a blues for prisoners with AIDS, with HIV, with cancer, for every prisoner who ever died for want of medical care she would have had on the street. This is a blues for the jailhouse junkies, winos, and all those who are dying on their feet trying to keep the pain away. This is a blues for every prisoner who ever hung himself, for every prisoner ever murdered by a guard and hung up like a suicide. This is a blues for every prisoner that ever went crazy inside a cell. For every prisoner who couldn't make it back out on the street. For every prisoner in solitary. For every prisoner who ever gave up. This is a blues for every prisoner who lives each moment to the fullest in spite of everything. For every prisoner who discovered her intellect in the penitentiary. This is a blues for every prisoner who works in the prison factory for next to nothing and sends what he makes to his family on the street. This is a blues for every prisoner who has lost a wife, husband, friend, or lover while inside. For every child who can't understand why daddy or mommy can't be with them. This is a blues for every prisoner who ever watched a sunrise through prison bars. For every prisoner who struggles to see the moon beyond the searchlights. This is a blues for every prisoner who's ever been too cold at night or too hot, too wet, too thirsty, or hungry, and there was nothing to be done. This is a blues for every prisoner who has refused an inedible meal, or a comfort, or a privilege out of principle. This is a blues for every prisoner who ever gave his only blanket to his brother when it was cold, or gave food to a stranger. This is a blues for every prisoner who still wants to be a gangster, and for every gangster who's about to become a prisoner. This is a blues for every prisoner who's inside for trying to do the right thing on the outside, and for every prisoner who's been doing the right thing since she got busted. This is a blues for every woman who's ever loved a man in prison, and for every woman in prison whose husband or lover never came to see her. This is a blues for every prisoner who's never had a visit or a letter, for all the letters sent and never answered, for every letter ever thrown out by a guard. This is a blues for every prisoner who spent a night in a cell gagging on the stench of shit, piss, and vomit. This is a blues for prison soap, tooth powder, and pressed wool blankets, for disinfectant, roach spray, and sulfur ointment, for sheets too short, socks too small, and mattresses too thin. This is a blues for every lie ever told to a prisoner by a guard. This is a blues for every weight pressed, every brief filed, every cigarette smoked, every sleepless night behind a wall or fence. This is a blues about strip searches, cell searches, shakedowns, interrogations, and a life of violations and indignities that only one who's been there could ever comprehend. This is a blues for every prison bully looking for someone to kill him, for every prisoner stabbed in anger, for every prisoner stabbed for no reason. This is a blues for the weak and preyed upon, and for the predators whose own hearts were the first victims. This is a blues for every prisoner who'd be on the street for want of a competent lawyer, for every prisoner on death row, for every prisoner officially murdered by the state, for every prisoner murdered off the record, for every prisoner with life, no parole, no hope, For every woman prisoner demeaned, insulted, molested, or raped by male guards. For every prisoner ever force-fed while on hunger strike. For every prisoner made to chop cotton, hoe cabbage, make license plates, sew blankets, dig ditches, pick garbage. For every prisoner ever beaten, for every prisoner bussed or airlifted while shackled like a slave, for every prisoner who cannot read or write, for every prison prayer unanswered, for every prison dream deferred. This is a blues for the rebels, the thoroughbreds, the stand-up convicts, for every convict who carried his own weight, for every convict who took the weight for someone else and never said a mumbling word. This is a blues for every mother who cried for her son or daughter in prison, for every prison mother that cried for her children on the street, for the children in prison with babies on the street, for every child who's already on the track to the penitentiary. This is a blues for the prison snitch whose punishment is having to live with himself. This is a blues for every prisoner who couldn't get to his loved one's funeral, for every prisoner who died alone and had no one to claim the body. This is an international, multiracial, equal opportunity affirmative action blues. A blues especially for everyone else who doesn't give a fuck about prisoners, because they're worse off than us. It's the blues that shouldn't have to be. A lost blues, the bluest blues. This is a blues just looking for freedom.